Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about environmental effects on phenotype of different organisms. And so the main thing we are focusing on as we look at these different examples is this paragraph I have here on my left. And so it says environmental factors. So that could be light, temperature, pH, influence, or could be nutrition, could be sunlight, sorry, influence gene expression and can lead to phenotypic plasticity. Phenotypic plasticity occurs when individuals with the same genotype exhibit different phenotypes in different environments. So we're going to start this discussion with identical twins, because that's always fun. And so when we talk about twins, there's really a couple different kinds of twins that exist. So we have identical twins or fraternal twins. Now, I am a fraternal twin. This is a picture of me and my twin brother, maybe about 15 years ago or so. And so with fraternal twins, they start out as two separate eggs fertilized by two separate sperm that lead to two separate organisms. So he and I have different genotypes and therefore different phenotypes. We are not identical. We look like siblings. We have the same parents. So there's going to be some similarities in our phenotypes. Now, in contrast, identical twins are going to start from a single egg with a single sperm fertilizing it. Now, what's going to happen there is during mitosis, then makes identical daughter cells, right? So we have two cells, and then those cells actually separate and will become two different individuals. So because they started from the same egg and the same sperm, they have the exact same genome. So for my identical twins example, I'm going to use some of my favorite students of all times, Jonathan and Joseph, to show you just how you can have the same genome, but due to differences in gene expression, it can lead to differences in phenotypes. So if you look at Jonathan and Joseph, you can see that they have incredible similarities, and they are identical twins. However, you can tell them apart. There are differences in their phenotypes. Now, that would be due to differences in gene expression. In Unit 6 for AP Bio, you will learn about gene expression, but basically that means which genes are turned off or which genes are turned on or expressed. And so they have slight variations in their gene expression, which then leads to different phenotypes, even though their genotype is the same. All right, and then we have another example is how in hydrangeas, a type of flowering plant, their flower color is not genetically based. Their flower color is dependent on the environment and the soil pH. And so depending on what color hydrangeas you'd like in your yard, you can alter the pH of the soil. And so in acidic soils, they will grow blue flowers. In more neutral soils, they will grow like red to pinkish flowers. And so that is an example of a trait, a flower color, not being inherited through chromosomes and Mendel's laws of inheritance, but rather the environment influencing that phenotype. So you could have two hydrangeas, sorry, let's keep going. You could have two hydrangeas that are genetically identical and plant them in two different pots, one in a basic, one in an acidic soil, and they will grow totally different color flowers. So same genotype, different phenotypes. And then we have a really cool example of animals. So we can look at Arctic animals. So here we have an Arctic fox. And as the seasons change, the Arctic fox's fur color changes. So this is an organism with the same genotype throughout the year, right? Like the genome it inherited from the sperm and the egg isn't changing, but rather how much melanin is being produced is changing. So melanin is a protein, and so the genes for melanin need to be expressed or turned on, then melanin will be produced. You can see in wintertime it is not really producing melanin, but in spring it is. So that is a change in gene expression that's going to influence phenotype. Now we also see this in Arctic hares, right? Same thing. So when it's snowy, the white fur helps it camouflage. And then as the snow begins to melt, their fur color will it'll like shed the white fur, and a new fur that grows in will have pigment or melanin. Now, the signal, though, is not temperature for these changes in the Arctic animals, but rather the amount of sunlight. So the amount of light coming into their eyes starts, if you already did Unit 4 with self-communication, starts like a signal transduction pathway that results in turning on gene expression for melanin production. So if you think about winter time wherever you live, the days tend to be shorter with less light. You know, the sun sets really early. Where I live, in the middle of winter, sun sets around 4:30, 4:40. But in summertime, it sets around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And so our days are much longer in summer. There's more light in the day. And so therefore, as winter turns into spring and the days get longer, that amount of light sends signals to the brains of the Arctic animals that then lead to changes in gene expression that leads to more melanin production. Okay, now this next example is also one of my favorites, and we're looking at how temperature in an environment can actually influence the sex determination, so whether the organism develops as a male or as a female, in some reptile species. So on the graph on the left, we can see, let's use the turtle with the green line. So in cooler temperatures, so let's look at the graph, so around 26 degrees Celsius, we see 100% of the offspring will develop as males. So if you had like a nest of turtle eggs and you kept them in cooler temperatures, all of those offspring will develop as male turtles. However, if you heat up that nest and it is at, we see in the graph, around 31 degrees Celsius, 100% of those offspring will be female. And so it is the temperature, not chromosomes, so not like X or Y, that influence sex determination in that particular species of probably a tortoise, right? What you can see here is, if you think about like sea turtles digging a nest, I don't know, a burrow, a hole on the beach, and they lay their eggs, the deeper you go, the colder it gets. And so if you've ever, I live in California, so I've been to the beach hundreds of times, and as you dig in the sand, the deeper you go, the colder it is. And so therefore the eggs towards the bottom of the sand are exposed to colder temperatures than compared to the eggs near the top. And so they are exposed to different temperatures in that, I don't know if it's called a nest, I don't know what the right word is, but you can see each species, like here in the graph, there's only 3 different species shown. So not all reptiles follow this, but for those that do, each species will have different, temperatures that will determine which genes are expressed to lead that developing embryo into whether it's going to develop into a male or into a female. So this does come down to, it's going to be temperature that determines which genes are expressed and then which developmental pathway that organism is going to follow, and will it develop male or female gonads and genitalia, basically. Okay, and then we have our last example is in humans. And so when we talk about UV light, that is going to be an environmental factor, right? And so UV light can actually penetrate your skin and go like through your layers of cells. And well, not every type of UV light. There's UVA, UVB, UVC. But the ones that do go through your skin are going to activate your melanocytes deeper in the surface of your skin to increase their production of melanin. And melanin is that pigment that gives us our skin color. So you can see in this picture, the one on the left has more melanin production moving to the surface of the skin, and therefore it'll result in a darker skin tone compared to the example on the right with less melanin production. And so some melanin production is genetically based, right? Like I have Irish and Scottish ancestry. So there is a limit to how much melanin I can produce. So no matter how much time I spend in the sun, there will be an upper limit of how dark I will tan. However, my skin color will vary from season to season. And so in summertime, I'm actually much darker than I am in wintertime. And so here you can see like the skin cells on the left have exposure to UV light, more melanin, which are those little black or brown circles. That's a protein, a pigment that we're producing, is going to accumulate in that tissue, leading to a darker skin tone, whereas the one on the right has less and it'll be lighter. And so you can see by things like a watch tan line, right? So where the watch is covering the skin, there's not any UV light, so therefore there's less melanin production, and the skin remains pretty white. And then in the areas that are exposed to UV light, there's more melanin production, and therefore it increases. Now, the UV light basically activates a signal transduction pathway that results in the production or gene expression of the genes that code for melanin. Melanin is a protein, so it would need like transcription, translation, and then you have your protein, and then it migrates and accumulates in the tissues. And so that rounds out my examples on how the environment can lead to different phenotypes of organisms with the same genotype. So check yourself. Here's like the overall big picture if you're in AP Bio. Can you explain how the same genotype can result in multiple phenotypes under different environmental conditions? Now, this might be easier to do once you've talked about Unit 6 in AP Bio, molecular cell biology, where you've actually got to study gene expression and transcription factors and what turns on and off genes. If you haven't got that far, but you need to understand it, I do have videos called Gene Expression that you're welcome to watch and learn ahead a little bit. All right, great job.